All right, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with the EOT Newsflash. This is the Gold and Land set cycle of cards for our Kaladesh Limited set review. If you haven't already, go check out all the previous colors: the white, the blue, the black, the red, and the green. Those are already up. We're wrapping up the last of these sets today, looking at the Gold and the Lands, and finally another part for the artifacts. If you haven't watched one of these before, we are working on a 4-point scale. 1 is your outer trash, you'll never play. 2 is your filler. 3 is your premium creatures in removal. And 4 are the absolute bombs that play into your color. You open the pack, you go, boom, play this color. So, without any further delay, we're going to jump right into our gold cards. And we're starting off with Cloud Blazer. 3 white-blue human scout, 2/2 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. 2 things I like doing in Magic: gaining life, drawing cards. A little bit weaker on the power on the size of the body, but for the cost you're paying, this is a huge tempo swing for you in your game. If you're playing like the blue-white Flyers deck in draft, or if you're just kind of like in a blue-white deck in your pre-release pools, great card right here. Solid 3 for me. Love this guy right here. Next one we have is the Contraband Kingpin. 1 blue and 1 black. It's to an Aetherborn Rogue that's a 1/4. It has lifelink. And whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. That's a pretty solid effect, especially if you are in the artifact-based blue-black deck, which is wanting to do a lot of fabricating, a lot of counter manipulation, and getting energy off of those. So just the ability to constantly check the top of your deck and kind of, craft your game plan around that ability, really strong. Gave this one a 3 as well. I really like this card a lot, and I hope we see more of these Aetherborn Rogue guys and Aether Revolt as well. Next one we have is Dapala, the Pilot Exemplar. 1 red-white gets you a legendary dwarf pilot. It's a 3/3. Gives other dwarves you control +1/+1. Each vehicle you control gets +1/+1 as long as it's a creature. Now, whenever Dapala becomes tapped, so you're tapping it either for accruing a vehicle or attacking, you can pay X, and if you do, reveal the top X cards of your library and put all dwarves and vehicle cards from your hand, from among them, into your hand. They're also bottom of your library in a random order. This one's kind of tricky to evaluate because typically when you see these multicolored legendary creatures, you can pretty much easily just slap them in your deck as long as you're in the colors and you're good to go. Unfortunately, Dapala is a little restrictive on what you can actually do with it, requiring both dwarves and vehicles to go with. On her own, she's just a 3-mana 3/3, which is perfectly fine on its own. But any synergy that you might have from your other creatures, being dwarves, or any artifacts the vehicles you have, make her a lot better. So in your sealed pools, I'm inclined to be able to just be playing this, as is. But if you could first pick this in draft, you're off to the races really quick if you could build around her in this red-white dwarf deck, which is, I guess, the thing we have to talk about now is red-white dwarves. All right, moving on to our next set of gold cards. We've got our third Planeswalker for the set, Dovin Baan. 2 blue-white gets you a Planeswalker with 3 loyalty. You can +1 it, and until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3, -0, and activated abilities cannot be activated. -1, you gain 2 life and draw a card. -7, you get an enchantment with your opponent can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. As underwhelming as his abilities are, he is a nightmare to play against in Limited. If he just comes down and minuses 3 times and draws you 3 cards and gains you 6 life, that is huge. I mean, you pay, let's see, for a Sphinx Revelation to gain 6 life and draw 3 cards, you see where I'm going with this. But just be able to go just plus minus. And if you're in this blue-white deck that maybe has some tempo, some removal spells, this thing's going to go a long way to winning you the game. He comes down and all the focus has to go to him because he's shrinking your opponent's best guy. He's drawing you extra cards. Awesome Planeswalker. Solid 4 for me. I haven't given a Planeswalker from any set at least in recent memory that hasn't gotten to 4 just yet. So kudos to Dovin Baan. A little underwhelming or constructed, but I think he's going to get there regardless. Next one we've got is Imperial Voyager. 1 green-blue, flying trample, 2/3. Whenever Imperial Voyager deals common damage to a player, you may get 1 energy. That's sweet. It deals damage. Like, it's a flying trampler. Like, how rare are we able to see the flample ability, as it were. This guy's really solid. I'm a little bit curious to see what the blue-green deck actually looks like. it does feel like it's a very energy-based deck. So if that's kind of the case, this is going to be a hallmark card for that deck, and a very, very good one for you to pick up in your drafts, and just a solid playable in limited pools. Gave this guy a 3. Next one we have is Engineered Might. 3 green and a white gets you a sorcery to choose 1. Target creature gets +5/+5 and gains trample until the end of turn, or creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain vigilance until the end of turn. This one's a little tricky to evaluate because it is a sorcery speed combat trick. We've seen in the past, instant speed, things like Celestia Charm that gives +2/+2 and trample. So it's a bigger effect. We have to realize that, which is why we have the increased cost. It's a full-on overrun in some cases, minus the trample. As it stands, I am going to stick with a 3 on this one, just because it's a lot of damage coming through. If there's a board stall and this is what your top deck is, you've probably either pushed through enough damage to win the game or clean up enough of your opponent's board state to really turn the tide in your favor. So this one gets a solid 3, a definite build around me. I want to go wide with my green-white decks in this format, it feels like. Next one we've got is Hazardous Conditions. 2 black-green sorcery. Creatures with no counters on them get -2/-2 until the end of turn. I'm not a huge fan of this one, to be completely honest. With as many +1/+1 counters that we have that are going around in this set in all different colors, it feels like this is really only going to be good against like the red decks that don't really have that manipulation, or the other white decks. So I'm a little less, hyped on this card. I give it a 2.5. It's still a solid sweeper. If you can clean up with like 2 or 3 creatures with this, you're not going to be too unhappy about that return. But just be aware that this might be relegated to sideboards against some matchups. But there are some times where this will just be an absolute all-star. So little column A, little column B. Next one we've got is Campbell Soup. Consul of Allocation. 1 white-black legendary creature, Human Advisor. It's a 2/3. Whenever your opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Now, obviously, this has got implication against Storm decks and more Eternal formats. But as it stands in Construct and Limited, he's really not much better than a 3-mana 2/3. When you're playing in your pre-releases this weekend, a lot of times your opponents aren't going to have that many non-creature spells. They're going to have maybe 5 or 6, and so you're never really going to get a huge advantage out of this guy. But if you are in black-white, I can see this being a perfectly serviceable pick. He's a great curve filler. I just wish maybe he had a combat ability, maybe lifelink of his own, maybe Death Touch, or just something a little bit extra to make him that much better and limited. As it stands, though, he is far better in Construct and I think he's going to see some play for him in the near future in a lot of older formats. But as it stands, 2.25. Next one we have is Rashmi, aka Mishra Anagram. Eternity's Crafter. 2 green-blue legendary elf druids, 2/3. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card with a mana cost less than that spell's mana cost, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you don't cast the revealed card, you put it into your hand. So this right here is a card drawing machine. Every time you cast a spell, what's on top? Okay, sweet, free card or free card draw. And as the game goes longer and you're casting bigger spells, the chances of you hitting a free cast off the top of your library increases incrementally, or not incrementally, drastically. Drastically. This will increase the chance of being able to hit. She's a little bit weaker, but for 4 mana and this kind of explosive ability, I can't think of a much better card to have in a deck. First pick it in draft, solid 4 right here. Awesome card. All right, next one we've got is Restoration Gearsmith. 2 white-black human artificer, 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature or artifact or creature from your graveyard to your hand. Almost said battlefield. That would be busted. Again, this is a solid 3/3 with a decent casting cost. But that kind of utility, if you've lost one of your key creatures to your deck, you lost one of the key artifacts, or just a good card in your graveyard, just get it back. Just for that alone, black-white does a lot of recursive effects in this set, and this is a great example of that. I probably wouldn't first pick this one, but if you're firmly in black-white as the draft goes on, or your sealed pool kind of dictates it, but especially in draft, if you can pick this up later in the draft and you're already firmly in black-white, solid pickup here. I gave Restoration Gearsmith a 3. Next one we have is the premier planeswalker, kind of like the icon of the set, if you will, Saheeli Rai. 1 blue-red, 3 loyalty, +1 to deal damage to each opponent and scries 1. -2 to create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. That token gains haste, exile at the beginning of your next end step. Boom. And then -7 is search your library for up to 3 artifact cards with different names, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. The -7 is a little bit of a, just whatever. But the +1 and -2, again, she's kind of like Dove and Bond, where you're just constantly getting a little bit of advantage every single turn. Being able to create an extra copy of whatever big guy you've got. Let's say you have a 6/6 in play. Well, I'm going to leave this back on defense. I'll create the 6/6 token and use that as my attacker. Super solid plays that are a little bit vulnerable to just getting knocked out very quickly. But if you can go long with Saheeli, you're going to do a really good, have a really good chance of winning the game. Gave Saheeli a 4 as well. Next one we have is Unlicensed Disintegration, 1 black-red instant. Destroy target creature. If you control an artifact, it also does 3 damage to that target's creature's controller. Super powerful removal spell. A little bit restricted because it is black-red, so you can't really just take this first pick like you have with an ML2 with more just mono-colored and more premium removal in previous sets. But this is still a really great card. I would definitely want to have the extra ability tacked on. As it stands, it's just a solid piece of removal. 3.25 for me, not quite a 3.5 because it's a little bit restrictive in my mind. Next one we have is Veteran Motorist, 1 red and 1 white. Gives you a Dwarf Pilot, 3/1. When you enter the battlefield, scries 2. So it goes really well with Apollo, we already talked about her. Whenever it cruises a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. I'm not really high on the Veteran Motorist. If it had maybe Menace, we were talking, maybe Vigilance, we're talking, but that body is so weak. He really wants to be in a deck that has a lot of vehicles. So if it's in your sealed pool and you don't have any vehicles, like I wouldn't recommend playing him. Draft is far more better, but as it stands, I would just go with a solid 2.25 for me. And 3/1's nothing terrible, nothing to scoff at in combat. He's going to trade up at least 1 time. But as it stands, not a super great card, just a solid 2.25 for me. Next one we have is Voltaic Brawler. 1 red, 1 green. Gets you a 3/2 human warrior that enters the battlefield, and you get 2 energy. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 energy, and if it does, it gets +1/+1 and trample until the end of turn. Super, super aggressive card. Again, if you're playing a sealed tournament, I can't really recommend playing super aggressive creatures because the board will get clogged up very, very quickly. Now, he might take out a key blocker on your opponent's side or trade him a couple times, and that's great, especially if you have some combat tricks, which green and red do have plenty of it in this set. In draft, though, this guy gets scary good. Being able to generate energy every turn and attacking with that extra point of power, really, really powerful. So I give this guy a 2.5 just because of his flexibility and the potential this thing has to deal out some real damage over the game. Our last gold card is Whirler Virtuoso. One colorless, a blue and a red, gets you a 2/3 Vidalcan Artificer. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. You can pay 3 energy and create a 1/1 colorless Slapper artifact token with flying. Now, in the blue-red deck, you're going to get a lot of energy very, very quickly. And just play this guy and paying his cost immediately, getting the guy is perfectly acceptable. If you're able to generate a lot of energy, making more and more thought projects is a great way to win the game and just completely overrun your opponent, just chip-shotting for 1 damage here and there, generating some energy over the course of a couple of turns and making another one. It's a great way to just kind of like open an army in a can, and I can see this guy being a really key piece in any kind of blue-red artifact deck that generates a lot of energy. So I like this guy a whole lot. 2.5 for me, just because of his cost. It takes a little bit to get that cost up again, and you might be in a situation where your blue-red energy-based deck has a lot of cards that are fighting for energy. So you might be in a situation where you can't constantly activate because there are other cards you're wanting to activate instead. So, wrapping up the gold cards, let's jump right into our lands. These are all pretty simple. I gave all of the lands 3s just because if you're in the color, you can play them. The key exception being Aether Hub. It goes in practically every deck that wants energy, and that's awesome. So I can see this almost being a 3.5, almost a 4 in some cases, just because there are some decks where it's just going to be an absolute all-star. But we'll run through the lands here really quickly. So we've got Aether Hub, which is the Nintendo Ice Bridge sort of functional reprint. And then we have all of the enemy-colored fast lands: Blossoming Marsh, Botanical Sanctum, Concealed Courtyard, Inspiring Vantage. Oh wait, I forgot about some of these. Never mind. Inspiring Vantage. And we have Inventor's Fair. Legendary at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 more artifacts, gain a life. That's not going to be that difficult to pull off, especially if you are in a deck that likes to play with artifacts. You can pay 4 and sacrifice it, search the library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it in your hand for your library. Only activate it if you control 3 more artifacts. You probably will if you're playing this. Go and get your Gear Hulk, go and get your console's flagship, and go to town. Another great card here. Like the rest of all the other of the lands in the set, I did just give it a 3 just straight up, just because it's a little bit restricted, but in the decks where it's good, it's real good. And then we have, let's see, Sequestered Stash. Add a single colorless mana to your pool, pay 4 and tap it, sacrifice it, put the top 5 cards of your library in your graveyard, then you put an artifact from your graveyard on top of your library. That's actually not very good. Why did I just write that up 2? Yeah, I'm gonna give that a 2. It's not very good at all, I don't think. Unless you've got, potentially, if you're in the black-white deck that has a lot of recursive elements, I can see this being one of them. Man, this is an iffy one for me. And last but not least, Spirebluff Canal, another solid 3. If you're in the colors, you're going to play it regardless. So yeah, that wraps up all of the gold and land cards from the set. I completely forgot about Sequestered Stash. Whoops. So yeah, definitely check out the rest of the set review, you guys, if you haven't already. I'm going to be wrapping up the set review with the artifact cards next. There are a ton of them to go over, and there's some really cool ones and some real stinkers as well. I had to really kind of dial my ratings on these, just because the variance in them is really, really, really high, I think. And in some cases very, very narrow, but you've got to be able to distinguish which ones are better than the other ones. So stay tuned for that one. Of course, check us out every week over on MTGCast for new episodes of the EOT News Flash. I'll be putting up the entire set review in audio form up on there, so be sure to check that out. You can take it on the go with you. Check us out on Twitter, on Facebook. Send us your love, hate, and respect, of course. And let me know what your favorite card in the set is. What are you most excited about to open in Kaladesh? What are you excited to play in your pre-release? It's this weekend. Get psyched for that. It's gonna be amazing. Leave all that in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and check out for new videos from me as often as I can. I'm gonna try and do more videos for the channel. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll get back to you guys here really quickly with the rest of the set review. Thanks for watching, guys.